How's it going?
Going well. I have a fever. I'm sick, but going well. I'm always happy to exist and live this beautiful life of ours.
You know you should be happy. And not just because you made your first successful trade on Flash Trade. I was there. I couldn't believe my eyes. Congrats.
You just jinxed me. I'm 100% sure I'm gonna lose that money, but still, yeah. Thank you very much. Let's do our.
we should like have an intervention and stop doing this handshaking
Yes, no,
mid
I mean
session
the
because you
setup-
just said that you had like a cold or fever or whatever, and you're like transmitting your disease towards me.
we drink from the same bottle, man.
No, we don't.
Yeah, no, we don't. But still,
But like you should be happy about it.
yeah,
Know why?
I'm happy. I'm happy. I made money. I mean, if I continue with this pace and trading on Flash Trade and having successful trades on Flash Trade and also staking the earnings that I have on FAF, I'm probably going to be able to afford the Pudgy Penguin really, really soon.
And that's what I wanted to get into because there's a lot of reasons to be happy today. First of all, it's a Friday. You
We're
made
not
some
going
money.
out, we're sick.
You made some money, and we have the fucking Pudgy Penguins joining us today. The CCO of Pudgy Penguins joining us today in this podcast, and it feels like a full circle moment for me because this is like one initiative, like one community I can really get behind because for some reason I like penguins.
You used to play Club Penguin. That's one of the main reasons.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
100% sure. Because I remember back in elementary, you were talking about Club Penguin like it's like something out of this world. And I hated the game. And you loved the game.
You didn't see the vision.
Yeah, that's probably why I didn't like the game. I was playing Minecraft, for fuck's sake. So, yeah, we have Chef today, guys. The mastermind behind the creatives. By the way, did you know that CCO means Chief Creative Officer? What
I
the
mean,
fuck?
it depends like on what the company is about. Because
No, man. Chief Creative Officer. I mean, I've never heard of that.
I have like, but there's like chief compliance officer, chief commercial communications, whatever. But like we're talking about one of the most creative brands out there, so CCO has to stand for Chief Creative Officer.
Bro, I've had friends send me TikToks of Pengu doing some weird shit that were viral, and they don't even know about the NFT collection.
Yeah,
Right? They don't even know about crypto, like as an industry, as how big it is.
keep that in mind, and let's go and ask some questions.
Yeah. Let's hop on the call. Yeah. All right. Hello, Chef. Welcome to HodlUp. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, boys.
Yep, always. I mean, we love builders, so everyone who's building in this space is always welcome. I mean, before we start like getting into the details of everything, I really want to just know your like the origin story, let's say, about like what you did before crypto, how you joined crypto, and then we just go from there.
Yeah, so I actually got into crypto in 2017. I started buying Ethereum relatively early. My first exposure was Ethereum. The second exposure I had was in Chainlink. So I was a Link Marine. Without even knowing what Link Marine meant, I just was trading with a lot of size. I had a really good return on Ethereum. I was averaging at like $280. And so I basically put a massive bag into Ethereum, rode that all the way up to 3,600, exited my entire position, and then rolled that. That was basically all my exposure there. And then my Chainlink I had kind of hung on for a while, and so that's all I did in crypto up until my exposure into Pudgy Penguins, and then everything from there was kind of history.
Yeah, and like speaking of Pudgy Penguins, you guys have become basically the face of crypto nowadays. So how did that come about? Like, can you talk us a bit? Like, how was it to take over from the previous founders, and what were the challenges that you guys faced? And basically, walk us through the story.
Yeah, so the origin story of how we came about Pudgy Penguins. Luca and I are basically childhood best friends. We've known him since I was 13. We had a few different endeavors together. We were building e-commerce brands for a lot of influencers, the likes of Jake, Jake Paul, Jay Alvarez, Little Pump, Supreme Patty, etc. And then, I kind of drifted off into my own space. I started my own creative agency, building a lot of CPG brands, helping with growth, etc. And then Luca and I actually got into a project together. We invested into a CPG brand called Gel Blaster. It's this like almost like Nerf gun. It's like in between a paintball gun and a Nerf gun. So they shoot these like Orbeez that explode on impact, which was a really awesome product. I came in and handled the growth. I rebranded the company and basically helped with scaling the social presence of the business. So everything from optimizing the website to doing the media buying to content, etc. And Luca was actually, he basically jumped on as the CMO. So he was kind of handling the high level initiatives in that company. And we also invested too. So we came in with a little bit of size into that company. And then like during our Gel Blaster days and while I was running the agency and kind of, being an agency provider to to a bunch of different companies, we fly out to Austin, Texas, and Luca's just looking at, these like JPEGs and like a bunch of guys are like starting to like trade this stuff. And, I look at the computer, I'm like, well, why are you spending hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars on like penguins? And that was the first NFT that I actually laid my eyes on, ironically. And Luca was just, super passionate about it. He was like, I don't know what it is. This is like during the mutant, mint as well. And so it was like a huge mania that was going on. I was still very, skeptical of the NFT space and just didn't really fully understand, grasp the concept and, the community behind it and kind of some of the, I don't know, the trading logic of like buying these and like selling them. So I was very, very exposed. You can call me a Web 2 newbie, but, I had my roots in crypto. I just didn't understand how this, kind of translated to the NFT space. And so, shortly after, a few months later, Luca gives me a call. He's like, hey, like I'm thinking about buying Pudgy Penguins. You want to come in with me? And so myself, along with a few other awesome people, Lorenzo, Vedant, and a few other people basically came in and acquired the project because I was, very creative. I had my own creative agency. He kind of needed somebody like a face, right, to come in and spearhead the creative side of the business. And so it was like a natural fit, right? It was a natural assumption that, a creative person will help, oversee a lot of the creative initiatives. And so from there, we just, we're just kind of building the business. Initially, our whole model was around royalties, right? Like royalties were great. If the company, if the project generated X amount of dollars in trading fees, we'd get a nice little, 5% on that. So there would have been a very, very sustainable business. And so that was the entire business model, right? It's like there could be a passive engine here if we acquire this. And so we did. We went 2 feet into this. And then shortly after we had the entire royalty fee collapse. And that basically made us look at the business through a different lens, which was like, all right, well, we have this amazing high potential IP. What can we do with it? And so we tapped into our CPG roots. We were like, all right, how do we take this from a very digital oriented kind of business to physical? And so, we went toys, we licensed them directly from holders. We turned on our content engine. So we knew that we needed some sort of form of like distribution because we didn't have the resources to go and launch our own TV show, build a game, right? These are like multi-million-dollar projects. And we were already $2.5 million into this thing, right? Without, any sufficient return on investment. And so we're like, all right, what can we do as a scrappy team of entrepreneurs, right? Peter, what can you do from the creative side, right? Like I have the agency, I have the capacity to turn on, content production. And so we basically did that for, 6 months to 6 to 12 months. It was just a lot of testing and just trying things out, a lot of community validation, a lot of testing. And eventually we kind of found our rhythm, which kind of put us on the trajectory that we've been now. So it's been a very interesting ride, a lot of uncertainties, but, we were able to find our groove. And so thankfully we're here now.
So did you guys plan it out beforehand, like all of this expansion that you guys have had, like from physical products to whatever you guys have in terms of IP? Did you guys anticipate it that it will be this way and this massive, or did it come by like naturally and one thing at a time?
Hell no. We didn't anticipate anything, man. It was just a lot of figuring things out, you know? Like, I'd be lying if I said, yeah, we all had it figured out. But we really didn't have it figured out. It was just, you know, as entrepreneurs, we just have to pivot relatively quickly. And, you know, it's about testing and getting to failure as quick as possible. And so we were able to do that on multiple occasions. You know, the Instagram account, we started with one strategy where it was just a lot of positive affirmations. That got us to a certain amount of followers, but then, you know, it started falling flat and we were on a downward trajectory in terms of acquiring new followers. And so we were like, all right, we got to amp things up. Now we started merging positive affirmations with, you know, some sort of animated content. And if you look far and back enough into the content, you'll actually see some penguins like speaking and giving you like positive, you know, affirmations. And man, like, looking back at that, I was like, man, I hated those times because it was so messy, so sloppy. And, you know, I always kind of like to chase the state of perfection to some capacity. And so it wasn't the best time for us because it really wasn't the best that we could do. Again, we didn't have a lot of financial resources compared to some of the other projects that had massive treasuries, right, to deploy in certain directions. We were just like ad hoc, a lot of the times winging it, but we went with full conviction, right? So we knew that wholeheartedly if we tried enough and, you know, we tested and got to failure and then optimize our failures and try to find, you know, new areas of success, we'd eventually find our groove. And so Instagram eventually did, you know, we caught our first break. One of our animations got like 40 million views and we were like, okay, there's something here. And, you know, we were like, all right, let's double down on this, right? It was a lot of like figuring out what has the most amount of momentum and then just leaning into that. The same goes with, you know, community and talking with a lot of the holders and figuring out like, what do you guys want to see for the business as well? So we didn't necessarily come up with a lot of the ideas. I think it was just a lot of these like open forum kind of committees, right? Where like people can get on stage in our inner igloos and suggest things that we can do. And, you know, the beauty about crypto is like, or these communities is you don't really know who is who or like where certain people come from. So you would sit on these inner igloos, you would pose a question and you would say, hey, all right, come on stage and suggest your idea. And all of a sudden this person has this background and is connected to all these people. And it's like, holy shit, like you're you know, you could be a big needle mover for us. So, you know, it was just a lot of leveraging resources and connections and hearing the community, working with them, validating a lot of our ideas. And, you know, it was just a lot of testing, a lot of split testing to validate the direction for the business. Now we did, you know, if you think about it from a holistic kind of conventional way of building an IP business, right? We didn't do any of those things, right? Like we went, you know, fully digital. We leaned into areas that we had the most expertise on, which was social growth, right? And so if we can distribute content in our own ways and find validity in some of the themes, then we can scale them, I mean, almost infinitely, right? Just because of the resources that we have and the experience that we have. Same goes with Giphy. That was like almost like a community suggestion, and then like it was a small thing, and then it just started compounding and growing and eventually became this like massive top of funnel kind of awareness for the business, and we just leaned into that much more aggressively.
Yeah, in terms of like growth and everything that you just mentioned, I think Pudgy Penguins is probably one of the best examples if you look at how people are onboarded through NFTs on crypto. Because I have friends who send me TikToks and reels of like animations or something that includes a Pudgy Penguin in the content, and I think that's amazing because I know for a fact back in 2021, that's when I joined crypto officially, right? If someone would tell me that this was gonna happen in 4 years, I was like, nah, that's impossible. Because I think back in 2021, there was this lack of vision, right, in many teams in the NFT space. But I mean, seeing you guys, it's totally different right now. One question that I have that, I mean, I don't want to say this with implications or anything, but like, how did you get all of these brands and companies and institutions to use Pudgies as their PFPs? Because I think that's like the brand is moving forward itself, if you get what I mean. Like you have Vanek, you have MetaMask, you have everyone just rocking Pudgy PFPs.
Yeah, I mean, we'll just call it a happy accident, right? Like you had the likes of Mungo and a lot of like these community members and community artists just start creating these like one-offs. And so you pair that with the upward momentum of the business growing. We'll just call it project in this context, but I don't like, you know, to be super frank, I don't like when anybody refers to us as a project, because like if this is
Yeah.
a project, this is a pretty big project, right? Like project is usually referred to as like something that starts small and then eventually blossoms. So like we've definitely exceeded that, and like I don't really like us being labeled as like a Web3 brand, right? Like we have done way more than what a conventional, like what does a Web3 brand even mean? Like we're a brand, like we have toys and we have content, right? Like we are a character IP company. That's what we are, but we're deeply rooted in, and we have our roots from Web3, right? Like if you look at why we were able to grow so much is because of the power and of the community that essentially stems from crypto. And so it was a happy accident how the PFP change kind of happened. It was like it was kind of like follow the leader. Once you kind of start seeing this kind of theme go around, and the sheer amount of engagement that a lot of these companies got, or even personalities, right? Like if you think about that same concept, right? Like when you go and announce that you bought a Pudgy Penguins or the likes of other NFTs, and you proudly announce it and you post it on the timeline, right? Like you typically get a lot of this community galvanization that will actually come and support you and welcome you. So that same theory kind of applied to a lot of these like companies, right? Exchanges, etc., to kind of getting on that same bandwagon. Now they weren't necessarily spending money on buying NFTs. It was just like honoraries. But it still had those same level of network effects that I think, kind of became a part of the business. Like it was, again, like you see, it's just about trying a bunch of different things, right? And then when they have some sort of stickiness, it's like the analogy of like throwing spaghetti at the wall, right, until it sticks. We threw a lot of spaghetti, man, and it stuck, right? So we found our groove.
Yeah, and I mean, as you said, it's like a domino effect as well. You need just one good influencer, for example, to share a specific design of something, and then you will have all the brands and all the communities, replicating that and just wanting to be part of that as well. Now, I want to dive into something a bit different. To me, not a project, since you guys are much more of a project, but to me, brands like yours have my utmost respect, simply for the fact that you've survived the post FTX crash. I mean, so I want to discuss a little bit on that, because especially NFTs got hit pretty hard, and a lot of people argue that NFTs haven't really like made a comeback, and like the entire segment of NFTs has kind of regressed in terms of the way that they're used today. So given that you guys are much more than that today, you're, as I said, you're the face of crypto in many ways. What were some of the challenges, and how did you overcome those challenges post 2021, when the bear market started? And was there ever a point where you guys felt maybe concerned that, but you knew that you still had to keep pushing?
Yeah, we were always concerned. I think, as entrepreneurs and founders, you always have that sense of kind of worrying, right? And, you have not only your performance is measured, right, but the community's performance is also measured. And so I think we call this like braving the cold, right? Like we were able to huddle up together and find ways to kind of push through it. It was dark times, and, for us as well, we were also going through a raise. And so we were getting very close to a fundraise. And during the FTX collapse, a lot of our tentative offers also kind of got, basically pulled back. And so it put us in a really dark, tough spot where we were on track to raise within a 3-month period, but it ended up extending to six months. And so, taking 1,000 calls, Luca Lorenzo basically spearheaded that initiative alongside a few other people as well. And so it was really tough, but if entrepreneurs know anything, it's just how to handle themselves during very resilient times. And so you just have to be you just have to keep the ball moving forward in any way. You got to be productive as much as possible, right? So like what can we be doing, right? Like productive, right, to move the space forward. So in parallel with fundraising, we were going through the toy manufacturing side. So while that like kind of dark era was brewing, right, the business side and what we were trying to accomplish was, in full motion, right? So that's around the time when we were already engaging with licensing partners and toy manufacturers to start helping us with producing the toys, right? And then shortly after, a few months later, we came out with these massive announcements. First it was Amazon, then followed up by Walmart, right? So, these dark times, they shouldn't necessarily steer any business decisions. You have to be fundamentally rooted in your own beliefs, right? Like if you have conviction, you lean into that regardless of economic circumstances or, some black swan type of events. Like there is some element of just like leaning into your biggest bets. And so the whole toy side of things, the fundraise were tentatively the two largest bets that we were making while keeping the community strong, and just letting them know that there's something to look forward to. Right? Like a lot of people lose hope. And so we had said, hey, like there is something to look forward to. Be patient, work with us. And so with the balance of community, with the balance of us working our way towards this, we were able to get ourselves out of these sticky situations.
Yeah, now like let's move to like better times, like to today and this year specifically. And I want to talk about Pengu, the token, and the token launch and the airdrop and everything. When the airdrop happened, I didn't really expect the token to do this well, because airdrops of that scale usually don't perform well. But checking the price today is basically quite high, right? It had a normal, like, natural dip, as every airdrop has, but now the token is performing really well. So my two questions here would be like, why the token? And then the second question would be, how did you manage to not let the token go like down 99% as it usually does with airdrops, especially NFT project tokens,
Totally.
brand tokens?
Yeah. So on the why we launched Pengu, as a brand that's focused on distribution and trying to get in as many households as possible and to really proliferate the IP, specifically from the Web3 kind of crypto side, the price of the NFTs got really high, right? Like it became like insanely expensive to participate in the ecosystem, even if you had full beliefs and this is something that you wanted to be a part of. It was very expensive. And so if you think about Pudgy Penguins awareness, right, and then funneling those people through that awareness, you had a lot of people dropping off at like these expensive price points in terms of participating, right? Like those $200, $1,000 price points were out the window. Now we're talking 30,000, 40,000, right? So it was a pretty expensive fee to participate in the ecosystem. And, for us, distribution is the moat, right? Specifically for growing the business. And so we looked at, what can Pengu do? And so Pengu essentially allowed us to open up and broaden up the ecosystem. And, the selection between which chain to do it on, it was not the easiest decision, right? But it was a clear decision in terms of where should we launch this token. And so Solana, was best positioned. I mean, they won the consumer crypto narrative. They had the easiest tools to get in and buy this. And so that's kind of how we, approach launching Pengu. In terms of navigating the hard, the hard times of, it going down 90%. We had a lot of black swan events too, if you guys recall, right? Likes of Libra, Melania, Trump. They were not easy. A lot of people were, who had a lot of conviction in Pengu, needed to rotate and clear up some capital to buy up and participate in these other launches as well. And so it had a negative impact on us. And then those people lost a lot of money too. So there wasn't a lot of new net inflows of buyers. And so, that paired with, massive sell-offs. I mean, we were doing really good for the first month and a half, right? We had a lot of buy pressure come in from retail buyers, right? The likes of Instagram and TikTok, people who were participating in meme coins. I mean, we were very, very viral. The anticipation of the launch was high, right? Like, because the business had a lot of fundamentals, right? And so people looked at that as the, as the conviction element to actually participate. And so, after that massive drop off, it was really tough for us. I mean, the allegations of sell-offs, the allegations of rugs. I mean, you if you want to feel like shit, just open up X and Instagram and TikTok and just see people, saying it's a rug. But one thing is, our fundamentals couldn't be better. The business was growing aggressively. Toys were selling. Views are compounding month over month. The fan bases are growing. And so we started looking at it as, okay, well, maybe price is just a lagging indicator of fundamentals, right? And so what did we do that we've historically done best? Just move with conviction, right? We knew that eventually people would come around. If you shipped enough and you gave the community reassurance that you were here, you weren't going anywhere. I mean, for us, this is a legacy play, right? We're trying to spend a decade building this business. We're not going anywhere. And so, yes, it hurt a lot. It drove our sentiment down. We were questioning our existence, at a certain point. For Luca, it was really hard mentally because he basically falls on the sword if anything ever goes wrong. And so navigating even the internal dilemma, which was like, your mental sanity. It's like, how do you deal with people who, aren't so educated? Like, they don't understand these fundamentals. They don't, a lot of people don't have business acumen, right? So they're not even looking at Pudgy Penguins and the performance that it has. They're just looking at price go down. So it's natural for anybody to just say, yeah, this is a rug, right? Like, that took you zero effort to say that, right? But that hurts, right? And that also creates false narratives in the space. So we just had to stop looking at it. Like, we were like, all right, look, we know we're here. There's nobody better than us that knows this business. We know what we're working on. We know the collaborations that are coming down the pipes, right? Like, the business was growing, and we had, and just the conversations we had. I mean, we were like, how could you not get excited about any of the stuff that we're working on, right? So we just put our heads down and did what we did best. We shipped, and then eventually the space came around and said, look, there's a clear winner here, right? We've been overlooking this. We've been, a lot of people lost money too, so they didn't necessarily have the capital to make new big bets. There was a lot of uncertainty, right? It's like, all right, even if Pudgy Penguins is shipping, right? Is price going to recover? It was a lot of uncertainty, but we stuck true to our vision and our beliefs, and now we're here.
But I still think you guys handled it pretty well in many different aspects, because when you think about it, why people tend to have these misconceptions about these launches is because a lot of projects in recent years, whenever they've decided to launch a token, it was mainly to extract that last bit of value out of their communities. But you guys did not do that. You guys basically provided another avenue for people who weren't able to get into the NFTs, for example, because they got too expensive. You guys provided them another avenue to be part of this ecosystem and this community. So I still think you guys did incredibly well with that. So now I want to talk about something else, because handling a crypto community is one thing, handling an NFT community is another thing, and handling something that's not crypto at all is completely different thing. Because as Atis said, there's a lot of people who have heard or have seen Pudgy Penguins and don't necessarily know about crypto, for example. Even my mom, she's seen the Pudgy Penguins, but she's never bought or invested in cryptocurrency. And so how do you balance these two sets of audiences? I mean, I assume you guys have a pretty massive team and that are not all into crypto and that deal with all the boomers, for example, or the non-crypto bros, for example. But how do you guys balance that?
It's been internally, there's been kind of a divide in terms of our areas of focus. The likes of Luca, Lorenzo, Vedant have always kind of focused on the Web3 side of the business, so NFTs and crypto, and what it means to kind of proliferate within the space, bring high conviction and leverage a lot of the things that we do on the Web 2 side. I like to kind of sit in the Web 2 bucket, right, where we're building a lot of these really strong fundamentals, so you don't really look at the business and you don't really identify like an Achilles heel, right? Like we're not playing the vaporware game, we're not in the, the smoke and mirrors game. It's all tangible, right? Like you can go into a Walmart, you can see it, you can go to the Instagram, you can go to our Comic-Con events, and you can actually talk to actual fans, right, that religiously send content between each other, right, and come to the booth and actually, sing their praises, right, and say, hey, like I'm a big fan of this business, right? Like I love Pudgy Penguins. Like a lot of people don't see that firsthand because they're in this, and when I say a lot of people, I mean a lot of people in crypto don't really see that. Yes, they see the headlines, they see the NFT supporters, they see a lot of traders, doing their analysis on how Pengu is, going to go to these heights, etc. But if these people ever cross paths, right, and you see a lot of that, right, just like how you said, your grandmother or your aunt sends you a Pudgy Penguins GIF, right, like that gives you conviction. You are way more motivated now to believe into the business than you were before. Now imagine what your conviction is going to look like when you go to one of these events and you start asking people, why do you like Pudgy Penguins, right? Like how much of a fan are you? Look at their look at their collection status, right? Like how many physical products are they collecting and participating in every time we drop something? And so we kind of like balance it out in that regard, where like the Web 2 side of things, we treat it as more like the actual rock solid business fundamentals. So, building IP, deals, building out games, having our arcade machines and, arcades globally, our retail distribution strategy, and just like everything that is all encompassing of building a character-based IP business. And that is that's something that a lot of people in the space, let's just call them traders, right, look at, right? Like those are the fundamentals they look at to trade. Those are the beliefs that they kind of are leaning into. And so that's kind of how we had it. Now the big challenge for us is how do these two worlds converge, right? Like how do they all speak the same language? And so we recently launched the Pengu website, which is basically giving you the hardcore facts, right? So it's talking a little bit to the native crypto / Web3 audience, and it's also speaking to people who are just generally curious, like what is Pengu, right? Like what is so interesting about it? Like I want to know more of the story. So there's an experience on our website. It's called highlight mode, and if you click on the highlight mode, you can actually walk through the journey of Pudgy Penguins and really feel that, right? Like there's an emotional connection of the journey, and it's interesting, right? Like it's like Pudgy Penguins is a big onion, and you just pull layers and layers and layers and layers and layers apart. I mean, the surface level, the exterior of that onion, right, is the views, the Giphies, the Instagram content. Now you pull the layer below that, right, and then it's the products. You pull the layer below that, then it's the communities, and then you pull the layer below that. It's the crypto community. Then you pull another layer, then it's the NFT. Then another layer is the lore, and then the acquisition, right? Like there's so many layers to this business, and I just feel like from a fandom perspective, like there's so much to learn here, and it's an inspiring story, right? Like how you took a project which was once categorized as a project and took it into a global phenomenon that it is today. And I just think it's a really interesting story for anybody, whether you're an entrepreneur looking for that spark, right, and looking for inspiration, or you're a trader looking, into participating into Pudgy Penguins, Pengu. You don't really have the knowledge, or you haven't been in the NFT, era, right? So you don't really understand the root and the impact Pudgy Penguins had on the space. So maybe now you're just curious on how Pengu plays that role, right? And so we've done I would say a pretty good job at addressing a lot of these points and telling one cohesive story where, anybody who's just, ran across Pudgy Penguins and wants to learn a little bit about the story, they can do so.
No, I get why you're the CCO of the company and the brand, man. The onion example was, I didn't expect that. But yeah, I wanted to talk about soulbound tokens, because I know it's like a long shot probably because you're more of the creative guy here, but I've never seen soulbound tokens in crypto being used, like, let's say in the mainstream brands or companies or anything like that. I've heard about the concept, I've read about it, and then I saw that Pudgy Penguins have also like issued like soulbound tokens twice, 2022 and 2023. So like, how does it fall in the ecosystem at the moment? This is more of a Web3 native kind of question. So
Yeah, we actually dropped a lot of soulbound tokens, and we still do that occasionally. We did this with collectibles, and so if you actually buy the physical vinyl figurines, whether you're a fan on Instagram, there was this lighthearted touch of like a digital experience, right? Like you kind of abstract away the complexities of like NFTs and all that. It was a very lighthearted way to get into this like digital ecosystem via soulbounds. And so we tested that a lot with these collectibles, and then also people's participation as well. So people who, you know, did certain actions, you know, were essentially dropped this soulbound. So I look at soulbounds as like a lighthearted soft touch to get into the ecosystem. Have we really leaned into that aggressively? I don't think so yet, because we're still refining and really just kind of cleaning up a lot of our infrastructure now as we're kind of ready to scale and take a more conventional approach at building IP. We're trying to figure out how all these moving pieces can make sense.
And I think what, in my opinion, I mean, what you guys did differently is because when you think about other NFT projects back in 2021, all of them, they try to integrate this metaverse concept. Like that was the end goal for them. And like whenever you would talk to them about Web 2 and they would, or like traditional industries, they would be like, no, those are dead. Metaverse is the future. This is all that we have to do. So you guys kind of did the best of both worlds in so many ways. And when you think about like the Web 2, so non-Web 3 aspects of what you guys have been doing, there's a lot of different challenges, like from copyrights, copycats. I mean, we've seen with Labubu dolls, for example, so many dolls impersonating them, like fake Labubus or Lafufus or whatever they call them. And now, speaking of Labubus, I saw a recent tweet that you was trying some sort of an accessory on a Labubu. So where are we sitting on that? And is there like any accessory like similar to that that people can be excited about in the future?
Yeah, that was an experiment that I had tried. So the whole clip-on game, I cut onto that trend about a year and a half ago. This is like pre the whole Labubu craze. We tried to do that with the Pudgy Penguins line. The problem is because we were so new, we didn't really define our core characters, right? Because like Pudgy Penguins is the brand name, but if you're in the character IP business, right, it's like, who is the character? And so the problem is we didn't figure this out early enough for us to like actually greenlight an entire retail strategy around like one or two, or like, let's just say 4 likes of characters that people resonated with, that people, you know, followed and fell in love with. And so in theory, the clip-on concept was something that we really liked, and that's why that was like one of the largest selling SKUs, but it wasn't, you know, Pengu, or it wasn't Poly, right? I think if it was Pengu or Poly, I think we'd see much greater impact on the business. Now we know this, right? And so now our entire retail strategy is centered around the likeness of these characters, specifically Pengu. The Labubu side of things came about, you know, there's this element of like IP remixing, right? It's like, how can you do these really interesting crossovers? You know, it's also riding waves. You know, though, like sometimes it's kind of cringe and corny. I think the balance and striking a balance between like doing it tastefully. It was just something I was like, yo, what if we do like a skin? I saw Ready Made do skins for Labubu. It's this luxury ready to wear brand, and they were selling these outfits for Labubu for $1,000. Like the accessory to dress your Labubu was $1,000, and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And then you look at, you know, IP remixing, right, where you take 2 IPs and you know kind of merge them together and you do some really nice kind of rendition. And I was like, all right, how fast can we greenlight this? And so we came up with the first prototype. We're already way beyond the first prototype that we had seen. The actual final one is the Pingu costume on top of Labubu, and he has a backpack, and inside the backpack is Polly. So he's like carrying Polly around everywhere he goes, but on top of Labubu. And so we're dropping, I believe, like 500 units later this year, something that people can just go and tack onto their Labubu accessory. But you know, it was a small, like, little ad hoc thing that we did. It wasn't a lot of it wasn't like the core focus, because we are still trying to build the likeness of our IP business. But you know, doing these occasional remixes, it's almost no different than you were to do like a collab with, you know, the likes of like a Line Friend or something, right? Like you're trying to cross pollinate different audiences. And so that was kind of like what the strategy was. It was like, how can we cross pollinate the likeness of, you know, Pingu with Labubu's, right? And like come up with this like remix version that people can feel like they have best of both worlds clipped onto their bag or any of their other accessories. So that was kind of like the thought process behind the Labubu outfit.
Yeah, no, since we're talking about the real life products that you guys have, I know that you guys, like, the royalties, they get like sent out to the holders as well, but there's like this whole process of licensing, right? I'm not sure. I don't know if my research is correct, but could you like walk us through that in like as simple as possible? Like, act like I'm a 5-year-old right now trying to understand the whole licensing and how as an NFT holder I can earn from like the real life sales of Pudgy Penguins.
Yeah, so this came about from our because we wanted to license the likeness of the NFTs from the holders and then make toys from it. The in between was really difficult, right? It was creating a lot of these contracts. It was defining, you know, the royalty terms. And it's also, you know, getting consensus between both parties. And so we didn't really have a way to streamline this and automate it. And so Lorenzo basically came up with this platform that we can build that automates a lot of this. And so that's how Overpass came about. Overpass was essentially a solution for the problem that we ran into, which was like, how do you license back the likeness of these characters and also reward them via royalties? And so that helped speed a lot of the things up. It became super automated. Users can go to Overpass. They can see all the listings of you know, future physical or even digital products that require some form of licensing. Users will submit their character, and whoever the receiving party is will essentially go into our portal. They'll make the selection from all these different people. You know, typically these selections are more aesthetically driven. There's like, you don't really gauge rarity or anything like that. It's whatever has the best color combinations, whatever looks aesthetically appealing. And so you would just make the selection, and then you would sign the agreements. Everything was like super automated. And then you just wait until the toys actually sold. And so that was like a little bit more of a laborious side of things. Like, we had to also get in touch with the holders and figure out what, you know, what their wallet information was. And then once the quarter for you know, the sell through was completed, we basically counted everything up. We gauged how much net we had, and then we paid out all the holders according to their royalties. So it was a fun experiment. Are we going to do that more? Yes. Are we going to do that at mass scale? Probably. The problem is we need to focus more on proliferating Pengu and, you know, sticking to the conventional side of things. Like, we need to do everything in our best effort to just grow the brand, grow awareness through Pengu, let people emotionally get connected to the character, you know, his backstory, the dynamic between other characters, right? Like, treat it like a real IP business. So then you actually have a want and need to go buy household accessories, to go buy little clip-on plushies that are the character that you're most familiar with. And then all these other characters, aka other NFT characters, you will slowly kind of batch them back in, right? So we proved this concept at mass retail. It did well, but we know that for us to scale to hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, we need to kind of lean into areas where we find the most success, which is Pengu, Polly, little Pudgies, right? Like, you saw us design these 4 characters. So that's kind of like our main focus, and then eventually bring back, occasionally like sprinkle in this character. And instead of just licensing the character and then just going straight to retail, now we have to add an element of content, right? Because people need to gain that awareness of the character. So we'll come up with a name for the character. Maybe it's something where we can collaborate with the NFT holder, right? And say, all right, like, what would you like to name the character? Then we incorporate the character into our animations, and then we come up with content, and we publish the content for the foreseeable future. And then when the toy is actually available for sale, people now have the emotional connection, the familiarity to buy it, and it's off the backs of, the NFT holder. And so I think it's going to come around full circle.
Yeah, I think it's also a must to like prevent from not going obsolete, but just like losing maybe the attention and the interest from all these people in your communities. Because when I think of Labubus, for example, I think it's like a lot of hype driven and not like something that will die out eventually, like the fidget spinners that we had in 2015 or 16. But you guys have been doing this for 4 years, and I know that in crypto time moves different. It's 4 years in crypto is quite a long time. So now, given that you maybe did not anticipate this huge amount of success that you've had in 4 years, now that you've seen and like gotten a taste of what you guys are able to do, where do you see like the Pudgy Penguin franchise brand ecosystem, whatever we want to call it, in the next 5 or 10 years? I mean, both in terms of IP and in terms of like impact that it has on crypto. Because I know you also guys have applied for an ETF, right?
Yeah. So that's the finance side of the world, right? Right now it's getting labeled as face of crypto, but crypto is eventually going to get labeled as just finance, right? So I think the Web3 / crypto and then eventually / finance, it'll kind of move into, Pudgy Penguins being the face of finance, right? And we'll see how that plays out in real time. I think it's a very ambitious goal. It's a very interesting goal because finance is not fun, like this, it's numbers all day, right? So you add a cute little character to it, leans furthermore into the roots of the business, right, which was deeply rooted in hyper financialized assets, right? On the IP side of things and what to look forward to in the next 5 to 10 years, because we are taking a very, very serious conventional approach, it's really just driving the familiarity around Pengu, right? So Pudgy Penguins has already amassed somewhat of familiarity in the space, specifically in the traditional space, right? The likes of certain studios, massive IP companies, they're already familiar with the company and the brand Pudgy Penguins. But still, we've yet to bring a lot of familiarity around the Pengu, right? Like, who is Pengu? What is his backstory? What are his challenges, right? Like, what is the character dynamic? And so for us, it's really heavily emphasized on just proliferating Pengu now, because Pudgy Penguins is the business and the brand. And Pengu, it's like Disney and Mickey, right? Disney is Pudgy Penguins, if you want to make that comp, and Mickey is Pengu, right? And so for us, we just need to start building the familiarity around the character. That will come with, more content. That will come with more toys, more physical goods. So we're not just talking about toys, we're talking about household items, accessories, things that you will go and see sold on MoMA. And then really just trying to nail our hero product that will actually expose Pengu to hundreds of millions of people worldwide, right? And that is typically done through some hero product like a game, maybe a series of comics or books or a film or a series. And so for us, because of the deal with Mythical Games, we're looking at Pudgy Party as like that mass breakout product that we can actually go bring Pengu, into households worldwide. And so off the backs of a successful game, we already have a lot of serious conversation with studios. Don't want to say who, but we've done a very good job with positioning the opportunity in front of a lot of these studios to look at Pudgy Penguins and say, hey, look, there's a lot of opportunity here. Where, if you jump on this now and we work towards a franchise deal 5 years from now, you're considered early, right? And so they're looking at all these metrics, right, as like a potential gold mine here. But we have to do a lot of the fundamental necessities here, which is like bringing more awareness to the characters themselves. So then 5 years from now, you know, if you're actually watching a movie, right, there's a massive massive success that will kind of come from that, right? Because when you launch a successful movie, that opens up, and if it actually sells through, right, and it actually does resonate with hundreds of millions of people, right, like that opens up Pandora's box to literally billion-dollar franchise opportunities, right? Like this will be a parabolic success for the business. And so if you position this correctly, right, where you have, let's say, little Pudgies, and you have Pudgy Penguins, and the movie comes out, and the movie, you know, is about the dynamics of Pengu and the likes of other characters, and you hint a little bit of like little Pudgies, right? There's a little Easter egg. Well, then a little Pudgies movie can come out of that, right? It's very similar to Despicable Me, right? Despicable Me was, you know, its own individual franchise, and then you had Minions break out from that. It's very similar to Shrek, right? Like you have literally 5 Shrek movies pretty much out there, or they're working on their 5th one. But what stemmed from Shrek? You had Puss in Boots, right? Puss in Boots became its own, you know, $100 billion franchise. And I think they're working on Donkey right now as well. So you got to look at it like through that lens. Like there is so much opportunity here, but it all starts and it's deeply rooted in characters. And so a lot of these, I'd say some of the conversations we're having with studios, they would prefer to work with brands, or they would like to greenlight some sort of film when it's based on something, right? So it can't just be Pudgy Penguins the movie and it's like, oh, well, I've never heard of Pudgy Penguins, right? It's got to be like Pudgy Penguins the movie based on the book, or based on the successful game, like you saw with Angry Birds, right? Like Angry Birds, if they launched a movie, like could have been, you know, as successful as it was, probably not, right? Or maybe it would have. I don't know. The world will never know. But they were way more successful because people spent a decade playing their games, right? And then you come out and the movie is based on the game. Very similar to Mario, right? Like we all spent our childhood playing Mario games, right? And then off the backs of that compounded success, they launch a movie that's based on the game or the familiarity around the characters in the game. And so we're trying to follow that same approach. You have to do a few steps in between that actually expose you to these massive franchise opportunities. So, you know, if and when Pudgy Party becomes successful, that will be one of the things to look at and say, based on the game Pudgy Party comes Pudgy Penguins, right? The movie. And so now people are like, oh shit, I used to play with these characters, right? I used to engage with these characters. Or maybe if it's not the game, maybe it's a series of comic strips that we're going to announce and release, right? Or maybe, I don't know, because, you know, we've been building the business so unconventionally, and, you know, the entire industry is changing. Maybe it could be Pudgy Penguins based on the Instagram. You know what I mean? And so you literally say, based on the Instagram account, like Pudgy Penguins comes the movie. So like, we don't really know, but we're trying to apply these best practices to increase our chances of a very successful franchise deal.
Now you mentioned every type of content like that you could create in the future, but what about an anime? This is like just a samurai pengu going brutal with like some type of I mean, I don't know, penguin
Jutsu.
penguin jutsu, yeah. What about that? Here's an idea.
Yeah, I mean, look, like you have the opportunity to do that with with comics. So are we gonna apply that level, that type of that theme? Like, I don't know. That'll be up for debate. We'll let the committee decide. But you know, it's very much within the realm of like what you would close your eyes and you would expect Pudgy Penguins to release, right? If you come out with an anime inspired comic, it's like, what? Like these guys just went full 180 into a whole different theme, and so you know, we really just got to lean into areas of where people expect us to be in and what people expect us to produce. And so, you know, if it's not an anime strip, it'd definitely be some form of a comic that at least gets you involved. Like there's some story, right? There's some character development arc that Pengu has to go through, right? And how he maybe finds love with Polly, and how, you know, Polly, you know, ends up going on this adventure, and like, who are the villains, right? Like, is it this character? Is it that character? And so, you know, that's where, you know, we recently, as of 4 months ago, we brought on narrative engineers to help us with developing the narrative, or at least just develop the the deep character background, right? Like we try to do that with we try to do that ourselves very early on. I'm not a fucking screenwriter, right? Like I haven't produced a single show in my life, right? I produced a bunch of short form UGC content, right? But that doesn't put me in a box of being a producer. So we're bringing on experienced people to help us at least develop the foundation and let the Penguins write the story for themselves, right? Like for us to sit here and feel like we're going to write the best story is, I mean, it's like heavily over indexed. I think if you create this foundation and you leverage a little bit of what the community is thinking too, and you kind of like, you test and validate some themes and figure out what this looks like and what that looks like, and you do lighthearted little drops of like this comic strips, and maybe we might do another book, and it will lead into like developing this theme that people are familiar with. So then if you're talking about Pudgy Penguins, you're not talking about Pudgy Penguins the brand, you're talking about Pengu, right? Like, oh, I love when Pengu did this. Can you a single time name like any of these IPs in the space? Let's just call it in the NFT space. Can you ever refer to a character, right, that did something that you like, right? Like, I don't know what your guys' favorite movies are, but like, for example, the majority of the conversations I have with people is just about the success of Pudgy Penguins and Pudgy Penguins doing this and Pudgy Penguins doing that, or Pudgy Penguins should do this. But when are we going to have conversations about Pengu? It's like, oh, I love when Pengu did this, right? I love when, I love that episode, or like, I love that, I love when you guys launched that book when Pengu did this, right? It's like these fan favorite conversations that lead into these big opportunities, and we just haven't had that yet, right? So we're not at that place where we can say that we're actually our success, right? We just built the overarching, the likeness of the Pudgy Penguins brand, but we need to dial more specifically into the characters and let when you're having, fireside chats, or you're sitting with your friends, the same way you would talk about, Iron Man or Dark Knight, and like the dynamics between Joker and Batman, right? Like those are fan conversations that you're having between the characters. You're not talking about Marvel, or you're not talking about Batman, some context of like the brand. Like, yeah, you're probably talking about the brand at some point, but you're really just talking about the characters, and you resonate with the characters, right? It's like, oh, like, all right, between Batman and Joker, it's like, who do you resonate with the most? Like, who fits your archetype, right? Like, who fits with your persona? I'm a Dark Knight fan, right? Like, I've always wanted to live that Bruce Wayne lifestyle. You see what I mean? Like that is what we're trying to talk about here, and that is what we're trying to create, and it takes some time.
Yeah, I think like one of the best examples that we can take, and we usually take this example a lot in this podcast because we're League of Legends players, and the Arcane TV show that they did. So a lot of people watch the Arcane because they play League of Legends, but now a lot more people are playing League of Legends because they liked Arcane, and now like the amount of players that the show onboarded into the game, even though the game sucks. As a player myself, I say that publicly, but like, yeah, I mean, I fully get your point on that.
And I think the thing is that, I mean, we've also discussed this particular thing a lot with Ren, is that lore is really important in terms of any like character that you have. If there's lore behind that, I mean, it's gonna be a success. So to wrap this up, I mean, it's not about lore or anything, but since you're like the creative guy of the team, what's like the trait that you like the most, and in all of the collection, like one trait?
Damn, putting me
hard question. Hard question.
Like, they're all great. For me, I think the wizard hat's sick. The cowboy hat's badass too. My PFP, that's like the only Pudgy Penguin I own, which is crazy because I was like, I should have been sweeping my own penguins, but it's like, I was more focused on building the business than, doing the trading side of things. But, my whole logic behind my character I had and the egg on top of it was, I look at it, like the analogy I have around the character is like, he hatched an egg, right? And he has a little penguin inside. And so I'm always hatching ideas. Right, I'm always coming up with ideas and always doing like creative stuff. So I look at that as kind of like a light bulb moment a little bit. It's like, oh, I hatched a new idea. And so I think that was one of the reasons why I bought the penguin. And it was also, other ones were super expensive too. And I was like, we just bought this thing for $2.5 million. Do I have more bread to sweep more penguins? Probably not. So I was like, you know what? Like, I'm already overexposed to Pudgy Penguins. Like, let's just roll with this one PFP.
I mean, you did some form of sweeping, right? That was the floor price, I assume, since you just said, like...
No, I swept nothing, man. I swept nothing. I went and literally saw a penguin I liked with the price point that I could afford at the time. Again, like I was so like all my cash was tied up in the Pudgy Penguins business. It wasn't in the characters, right? And so I was like, all right, like what if I had to get more exposure and create a whole persona and identity around something? Like I think at the right time, my wife and I actually picked it out together, so it was cute. There's tons of great characters.
All right, Chef, thank you very much again for joining us today. I mean, we could have gone for hours and hours to talk about everything, really. Just an amazing IP. And yeah, we wish you a good day ahead. Yeah, it's early on where you live, so we're probably going to talk again soon. So yeah, good luck with Pudgy Penguins, good luck with your personal life, and talk soon.
Thank you so much, boys. Thank you for having me.
That was amazing.
Yeah, I mean,
We say this after every fucking episode.
dude, we just had Pudgy Penguins
yeah.
in the podcast.
Yep. That was massive. I mean, let's talk about the insights that we got. Because personally, I've been researching this project for years. I never knew how it really worked.
They're pretty massive.
They're fucking huge. I mean, see. Okay, numbers are good. Numbers are they're at the billions in terms of market cap, in terms of viewership. TikTok, Instagram, social, every type of social media. Every institution exchange or whatever the fuck, like every big player in crypto has had their PFP related to Pudgy Penguins at some point in time. But what's massive about them that I just realized is how they dealt with everything from the beginning, as Shab just explained.
Yeah.
Because it's rare to see. This is a Web3 brand. Let's not forget that. And Web3 and Web2, I mean, it's not a Web3 brand. He just said he's not a Web3 brand, but still, when you talk about crypto brands that at least have some exposure to crypto, they're not disorganized. They don't push this hard.
Yeah.
And I think this is exactly the type of building I want to see in real life. We had Helium as well. They have like this Web3 brand, but they're building on Web2 as well and connecting with people in real time. So I think this is the way. I mean, they're bridging the two worlds.
Yeah, I mean, like, what's impressive to me is that, like, when I think about it, if I had 2.5 million available to buy or, like, launch something on my own, like, I wouldn't think of, buying another project. But, like, they saw the vision.
Yeah.
They saw, like, you cannot go wrong with penguins. Like, name any bad movie that features penguins. Like,
there isn't any.
Yeah.
Or game.
Or game.
We had Club Penguin. You played Club Penguin. I didn't, but still.
So yeah, I mean, I'm super happy we made this episode possible, and I look forward to many more plushies.
No, I'm ordering
brought here.
One today. We're gonna have to order like at least 3 today. We're gonna have some of them here. We'll probably hold one like this throughout the episodes.
Maybe we should buy one.
And if of course, we're gonna buy like 2 is the 60k per piece at the moment. We can buy the meme coin though. I used to own some like a few months ago, but then I had to sell because of the financial situation of the world.
Let's open a GoFundMe and like make this our cause. We need to have like
in the first episode that we had to open a GoFundMe for my hair. Get a haircut.
So now we moved on to better causes.
Yeah, that's true. But like the $7 haircut and the $60k NFT JPEG, as Chef was calling it, a bit of a discrepancy here. Like it's a difference. But yeah, thank you, Dren.
Thank you, Otis.
We will see you on the next episode. We love you guys, and yeah, bye bye.